So now we can focus on the pitches of the song. We can see that the first 6 notes all have the bottom line going through them. So going back to the cheat sheet that we have here, we can see that if the bottom line of the staff, the lowest line of the 5, is going through the note, that must mean that it is E. So we can know that the first 6 pitches of Jingle Bells, Jingle Bells, Jingle Bells, are all on the pitch E when we go to learn this today. Okay, and as we get to the next measure, we see the same thing. We start on an E, bottom line's going through it. The second line of the staff is going through the second note. So if we go back to our cheat sheet, we can see that that's a G. So we have E, G. This one down here has a little line going through it, this third note here in this third measure between these lines. So this note here, with this own little line going through it, is middle C, which we talked about before, the C below our treble clef staff. So we have E, G, C. This note right here, take a very close look. You'll notice that there is no line going through it. It kind of looks like the bottom line's going through it, but if you really look closely, you'll see the difference. E has a line going straight through the middle. This one is below the line in its own little space, which means that it is D. So we've got E, 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 G, C, D, and then we back to this whole note. If you look closely, you'll see the line going right through the middle of it, E. And just like that, we can figure out the first line of this, and we're already a quarter of the way done. Now, this, of course, can take a long time, so we're going to kind of go ahead, and I'll just give you a little bit of a cheat sheet version of it. And instead of figuring out every single note this way, we'll take a look at this. And just like that, all of our pitches are filled in here, which we'll just kind of fill it in a little more just to make it nice and easy to see. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, if you guys remember what I just said from the first line, and it's really hard to read on these, but it's there. You'll remember that the pitches from the first line are E, 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 G, C, D, and E. And that's just our first line. So as we go down this, we're going to start to find that some parts of this do repeat, which is what we're going to learn today about something called phrases in music. And then we're going to learn to play this song. So now we can take a look at the second line here. And if we take a very close look at the first note on our second line, this note is between the first 2 lines of our staff. It does not have a line going through it. It's in the space between the lines. If you take a close look there, you'll see that the answer is that this is an F between the first 2 lines in the first space of our staff. So we can go ahead and just label the first 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th note of the second line all as F. Now, going back to this one, we should be pretty familiar by now that we can see the next 1, 2, 3, 4 notes all have that bottom line going through it. Now, just like before, we know that the bottom line of the staff, when it's a treble clef, the bottom line going through the note means that all of these notes right here, these next 4 notes, are E. Now, it may have been harder to see before when we had the E here and the D there, but it's much easier to see here that the E has the line going through it and this D is lower. It does not have the line going through it. The line's on top of it. It's actually in the space below the line. It's much easier to see when these notes are next to each other. So these right here are both D, followed by, again, we have another E. Then we have a D. Now this is a half note because you can see it's not colored in like these. These are quarter notes. This is not colored in. So this is a D. And then we have the second line of the staffs going through. This is kind of hard to tell because they wrote the little G in there already. But we have E, D, and G to end that second line. Now, as we continue down here, we should probably pretty quickly realize that this third line looks awfully familiar. We have the same thing as the first line. So we can actually go ahead and just copy all over the same notes from the first line to the third line because we already know it. These are the same what we call musical phrase. So I'm going to go ahead and we now have our third line filled in with all of our letters. Now that brings us down to our final row of music right down here. And we'll also very quickly realize that the beginning of this line is very similar to the second line, but let's not get it carried away here because, yes, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes are the same, the first 2 measures. But once we get to the third measure of this line, it is different from the third measure of our second line. This one we'll call a different ending tag, all right? So maybe this is our first phrase, second phrase. We use our first phrase again. And then we use a kind of a third phrase that's a bit of a variation of our second phrase because it starts the same, but it ends differently. So let's go ahead. We'll fill in the first 2 measures. And now we can just focus in on the last 2 measures. So First note of the third measure here, we have a second line going through the note for the first two notes. That's, of course, a G. So we can go ahead and just label those G. Next note is between the first two lines, so that's got to be in a space. That's an F. Now this, of course, not with the first line going through it, but it's below it in the space, so that's a D. And then the last note, very clearly a whole note. It's not colored in, just has the letter of the note in there with a line going through it, which of course means that it is middle C. I would never suggest getting into the habit of writing in all of these letters once you start reading music. But since this is probably new to most of us, this is a great exercise to just take what we've learned here and apply it to something that, at least with Jingle Bells, something we all pretty much know. So this is just a good exercise, but the more you do this and the more you're used to, say, if you look at this note right there and you say, okay, that's a C. If you know that's a C from the first time you look at it, I would not write that in. I only like to write in notes that I would always seem to get wrong or I'm really not sure about. But ones I am sure about from the first time I look at them, I usually would not want to write those in. But this is a good exercise to begin. So now that we know this, let's go back and we'll talk about what fingers on our hands we can use to play this on a keyboard. So we already said we weren't going to be using our left hand quite yet. We're going to be using our right hand today. So we can just go ahead now and immediately take each of these pitches that we know and apply a finger number for each one of those notes. So the first 6 notes are all E. So the number finger that goes with E is our middle finger, finger number 3. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to label each one of these E's with the number 3 for the finger we'll be using in our right hand to play this on a keyboard. And so now you can see I just went down the whole line and I added the numbers that match each one of the pitches. So all of the E's got a 3. We had a G here, which is finger 5. We had a C down here, middle C, which of course gets finger 1, which is our thumb. I had a number 2 for D, for our second finger. And of course, we're back to E, so our third finger ends the line. So now we can move on to our second line. Second line, of course, starts on the pitch F, which is where we're going to use our ring finger. I'm going to match each one of these pitch letters to the finger on the hand that will play it, just like this. And then, of course, we end up with this. We have F, 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 E, E, E. So it's 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3. E, D, D, E, 3, 2, 2, 3. D and G, 2, 5. So that's how it's going to work. So using the same rule, all I have to do is go ahead and add these numbers to the rest of our line. So now we can go over the first line. I'm going to take a look at the finger number here that matches each note. Now, as I say each pitch's name, I'm going to move the finger that matches it, which, of course, I put the numbers up above. So let's take a look at the first line. First line would go E, 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 G, C, D, E. Now, the first time you do this, you may have to really think about the numbers you have on your finger. You may have to go slower than that. But over time, you'll get used to when you see the numbers moving that finger. And more importantly, when you see the pitch moving the finger without even thinking about the number. So we can go ahead now. We're going to go over to our keyboard, and we're going to learn this. All right, my friends, we're going to run out of time here for part 3. So I'm actually going to make a little bonus episode for us this week where we're actually going to get into playing this song instead of just analyzing and learning how to read. We've done a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff that we just have to learn in music so that we can have some fun with it. So I highly encourage you to check out this next video at some point if you get the chance after school or during our holiday break. This is a nice video. Just leave open on your computer when you get bored. Take the challenge on. I really think you guys will get something out of it. And we'll be playing some more keyboard into the new year. Before you go, make sure you answer the exit ticket here on our Padlet. You'll see there's a little sticky note over here that's got a few questions for you. It's based off the answers that I gave you in this video. So please make sure you guys complete that. That will be graded. And for those of you that don't check out the bonus video, I really hope you do. For those of you that do check it out, thank you. And everybody have a nice holiday break. And hopefully you guys check out this next video here. Some of them after school, maybe during the break, learn some Jingle Bells. All right, guys. See you later.